Well, welcome to the Mental Health Janitors. I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess. And together, we're going to help you clean up the mess in your head. And so today is a little different. We're actually shooting on location. Jessica is in Mexico and I am in Hawaii, and we're still putting this thing together for you guys. And we have an action-packed episode for you. We're going to be talking about some new advancements. Again, we're talking about wearables because this market is super hot. We're talking about the pinnacle of wearables. It's called the Apollo. And so we'll talk to you a little bit about that and why it's the industry leader. We're also going to talk about current events, which is going to be the celebration of and remembrance of 9/11 and how we as a country fought through that dark time and came out stronger on the other side. And so we'll talk a little bit about that because that's something that's going to be heavy on everybody's mind today as we're recording this episode. It's something that is going to touch each of us a little bit different. So we'll touch on that and we'll talk about that for sure. We're also going to talk about the new tool for your toolbox, which is going to be DBT. So Delta Bravo Tango, Wise Mind. It's a technique that Jessica is going to teach us. And then as always, we're going to go through the practical application where she's going to put me through the process. So you guys get the benefit of seeing what these therapies look like. And, we hope that we can educate you, empower you, and encourage you to take control of your mental health journey. So, all right, Jess, let's get into it. First of all, I want to know about Hawaii. How's that been out there?
Mexico.
Oh, that's right. I'm in Hawaii. How's Mexico?
And it's 5 hours difference, I think?
Yeah. So it's 7 a.m. for me out here.
Yeah, it's noon here. So, it's been amazing. It's been a much needed R&R for myself and my family. I spent a couple days up in Playa del Carmen, where the ocean literally feels like bathwater. And the first couple days, we go. We rent an Airbnb, and then we do all the excursions and all of the cultural stuff. And we visited the Mayan ruins and a couple cenotes and learned a lot about the history over on this part because we've never been on the Caribbean side. Always go down to the Baja side. Anyways, it's been incredible, a great experience. Billy, my husband, and I are thinking about doing a blog about this side versus the other side and the pros and cons of both. And so that'll be fun kind of to put that together for him. But it was also our 11-year anniversary on the 9th. And so, yeah. And we've gone away before, just the two of us. And like day 2 or 3, we're like, we really miss our kids. And so from here on out, they're just at such fun ages and they're such good kids. They're actually like really fun to be around. They don't talk back or whine or complain. And so they're good human beings to be around. And so why not bring them? And it makes our time a lot better because we're not missing them. They're not missing us. And they're pretty cheap to tag along.
That's, it's funny because I can already hear the eye rolls of some people like, oh my gosh, I go on vacation and get away from my kids, not to bring them with me. But I'm with you, Jess. I started taking our kids with us when they got a little bit older. They could self-soothe and travel with us. And yeah, they became great travel buddies. And even my daughter now, she's an adult and her and I still travel on a regular basis together. We grew a great friendship, as she was growing up in her teenage years. So yeah, definitely, there's definite value in that, but you've got to be able to make sure that they behave in public and, aren't becoming a nuisance. So good on you for doing that. The Mayan ruins. So I was in Honduras and I went and visited some Mayan ruins and they were much bigger than I saw in the magazines. Just the sheer size of the blocks and the whole infrastructure they put together there. I mean, they had flushing toilets back then. Like, it's crazy. You wouldn't think that, but they had flushing toilets in the Mayan ruins. It's pretty amazing. Did you guys get to go like inside and see any of those things, any of the technology?
We didn't. We learned about it from outside on a tour. Yeah.
I have a way of talking my way into places. So,
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, I made friends with one of the guys that was there that was doing like security, and I was just asking a bunch of questions and like, oh, that would be really cool. Could we see that? He's like, well, it's not really open to the public. I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure you could get us in. And sure enough, he takes us up there and shows us. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But yes, definitely vacation is is important. It's good to get away from
and
our responsibilities for a little
like,
bit in a new environment.
So, and you're obviously in Hawaii, and I'm sure you're working.
Yes.
Yeah,
I actually am working. It's actually been amazing. It's been amazing. So God has really showed me how to have a servant's heart. And so I just try and help people as much as I can and add value to them. And so I started working with the Muckleshoot tribe. I've worked with several other, indigenous tribes in the U.S., but I started working with them earlier this year and helping them get connected with the Seahawks so they could bring their honor guard in and do the opening ceremony for one of the NFL games for the Seahawks. And so I helped bring that together. And then they invited me. They wanted me to come with them to be part of that experience with the Seahawks. So I did that. And I've just been walking alongside them. I helped them put together a big mental health fair that they did this summer where they wanted to have a mental health fair 2 days before they had their big 20th anniversary for the Veterans Powwow. They'd never done that before, but they wanted to put something together. And so I helped do that, helped bring in a bunch of other mental health specialists and put together the whole program. And it was really neat because they brought the Hawaiian Royal Guard over as well to perform. So it was really cool to see those ceremonies, those cultural exchanges that they have, where when the Hawaiian Royal Guard got to their land, they stopped and they all got out of their vehicles and they sang a song and they requested permission to, come onto their land, and, they accepted it. There was a gift exchange. So it was just really cool to be in that moment, especially as an outsider, and to see this happen. It was just powerful. And so fast forward, here we are, like a few months later, and the Muckleshoot tribe had been invited by the Hawaiian Royal Guard to come over for one of their powwows, and they wanted to take them to some of their ancient sites where their elders and where their royalty have been laid to rest. And this is a place that outsiders don't get to go. Even a lot of Native Hawaiians don't get to go and see what we were able to see here. And so because I had helped them so much get connected in the beginning, they brought a videographer out to film the 20th anniversary. And so they wanted to hire that same videographer, Bo Shevasu, our friend Bo, to come and film this cultural exchange out here in Hawaii. So I got to come as well, run a camera, and support the filming. And again, I'm just volunteering my time. So I'm not getting paid or anything like that. I'm just adding value, helping them. And coming up in November, we're going to be taking the Muckleshoot tribe and part of the Hawaiian Royal Guard, and we're going to go down to Mexico, and we're going to build a home for a homeless family in Mexico, which is going to be an indigenous Mexican family. And it's actually during Native American Heritage Month. So it's just this full circle thing that God is doing that I get to be a part of just because I'm obedient to what he called me to do, which is to help other people and add value. So yeah, that's what I'm doing out here. I'm working. Well, I'm volunteering, I should say. But I mean, I can't, I'm not suffering for Jesus. Okay. I'm just letting you know, like they put me up in a really nice resort. They're feeding me. Like you can see the ocean back here. Like it's been incredible.
And you get to go with Bo.
Yes. Oh,
that's epic.
I'm just telling you, Bo and I could get in so much trouble together if we weren't Christians. We just play off of each other so well. But it's all fun and lighthearted. But I'm just thinking like, man, we could be good scammers out on the street. I think we could be, grifters. I didn't hear
you. You blocked out. You could be good on the street?
Scammers, like grifters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We could totally run scams on people because we just play back and forth off of each other and people believe us. And we have a lot of fun. We have a different name, for each other every time and a whole new setup that's just totally ad-libbed when we go, to get ice cream or, to go have dinner. We're just two totally different characters every time. It's a lot of fun. So let's get back to what we're here for, right? Let's talk about mental health. And so you wanted to talk about the new advancements? Is that what you wanted to talk about, or should we go into the current events?
Let's touch on the new advancement.
Okay, let's do that.
Because, neither of us know too much about it, but we can dabble in it a little bit and maybe get some, word out there. Maybe they'll reach out to us and let us try it. Do a trial.
Yeah,
I don't know, because it does seem like pretty interesting to say the least. Not good, not bad. But what we're going to talk about today is the Apollo wearable, PPO. Nope. APOLLO. Apollo Wearable.
So normally I bring the new advancements, but Jess found this one, and I had never heard of it before. So she had to brief me on it this morning. So go ahead, take it away, Jess.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, it comes from a research out of, I believe it's University of Minnesota. And they took it as a trial for a couple thousand people and saw really good outcomes in that trial period. And what it is it's a wearable, either wristband or ankle band. And they consider it in their marketing the peak of the third generation of wearables, right? Because it all started with, what would you say the first wearable was, Q?
Wasn't it the Fitbit? I think the Fitbit probably would have been the first one. Yeah. And it was super simple. It just tracked like your movement, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is now, it's not a watch. It doesn't give you any information other than really it dives into the part of touch with our nervous system. And when our nervous system is peaked with stress into the fight or flight, touch is one of the major ways to kind of bring us back. And we've talked about that here on the show together quite a bit. And really the idea behind this is it takes some time to follow your rhythms, but once it can tell you're out of rhythm, it either vibrates or does a tapping wherever you're wearing this wearable. And you can do it for, 30 seconds up to, I think, 15 minutes, depending on where you're at. And the research is showing that touch and bringing you back to that in line with your nervous system has been pretty beneficial. And there's some of the benefits were the participants got better sleep. There's also morning routines you can do with it. There's evening bedtime routines you can do with it to help kind of bring you back in line with your nervous system. And so it does look a little interesting to me. I wouldn't be opposed to trying it as a mental health counselor. For some of my clients that are willing to try things like that, I think if I saw some benefit to it, it might be a good tool for us.
Yeah, and as you're telling me about it, all I can think about is the brain-body connection, right?
Yeah.
Like we get stuck, and so they're talking about, getting your nervous system back in line. And what I'm looking at is your conscious and subconscious mind, right? So when we're experiencing trauma, we're having anxiety, or we're not remembering that trauma. Most times when we get stuck in that subconscious loop, we're not remembering the trauma, but we're actually reliving it. Our body is reliving it. Right. So we're here in the present, but our body is reliving that past trauma for whatever reason. Something in our environment triggered us. And so then our body is having those physical responses as if it's happening again. And then we can get stuck in a lower form of thinking where we're just stuck in that memory and we're not really focusing on reality, on what's happening. That's why grounding techniques are so effective in therapy. When people start reverting into that past trauma memory, those grounding techniques can bring them back out of it. And it's something that my wife and I practice with each other because we both have, different traumas. And so we'll practice those with each other when we can start to see the other person is just not quite there. They're reverting back into that memory. We will use grounding techniques with each other to bring ourselves back. And I've used it a lot just being out there on the street and working with people. And I can recognize that they're having a mental health crisis and I can use that. And it's funny because when I work with the police departments, I teach officers how to do this. Like, hey, when you're dealing with somebody who is in crisis, they just witnessed something that was terrible, or maybe they were a victim of assault, the information you're going to get from them is not going to be great. So try to do one of these grounding techniques really quick and you'll get better information from them a lot faster. And so, the ones who try it have reported really good results by just taking those 30 seconds to do that. And that's why in the Q Actual app, we have grounding techniques. So now if you start to feel out of sorts, we talked about that last week where you push that button and we talked about the squad mentality. You have your group of guys and when you push that button, it sends an alert. Now, it's remarkable because when it does that, it starts a grounding technique, which helps you regain your cognitive thought process. And so very similar to, I think, what the tapping is doing, and I haven't read the research on it, but I'm guessing what the tapping is doing is it's bringing that person back to a conscious state of mind by having that physical touch, which is bringing them back out of that memory. Did you read anything about that in the study at all, Jess, about
No,
the why it works, just how it works, but why it works?
not yet, but I am interested in reading it, and I can bring some more information.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by it. Why the touch is important. Like I have my theories on it, right? Like why I believe that it's working. But it'd be interesting to see from their point of view, like what was their theory going in, and then what was the metrics for success, and then how did they rate that, and then what the end result would be. Sounds fascinating. I looked it up a little bit. They didn't really publish any of that information, on their website or anything like that. So it might take a little bit more digging to try and get that insider information from them.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Well, you want to sweep us into our current event for today?
Well, yeah, but let's finish up right here on the wearables, because now my brain is just spinning with all these ideas. I love it. I love technology. I love the new tech that's out there. And so when I see other people doing things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on the right track, right? Because I'm doing similar things in that space with my technology. And so, like I said, when they push that button, they get those grounding techniques or help them regain their cognitive thought process, but then it also turns on their GPS locator. Right. And so now their friends can navigate directly to their position and help them when they're struggling. And then we have a list of resources there as well. So now their friends can access resources to be able to help this individual get to the professional care they need, should they need it. And so we have talked about integrating wearables into our tech. And so we don't want to build our own wearable. We definitely don't want to do that. We don't want to get into building hardware. What we want to do is I don't want to be competition for any of those guys. I just want to help them be better. And so I want to be able to create plugins to where whoever's wearable can be accessed by our app. So it doesn't matter if you're wearing a Fitbit or a Garmin or this new technology, the Apollo. It can be used to track that biometrics data and report it back to you. So whatever wearable you're using, we want it to integrate with all of those. And so that's one thing that my team is working on right now. It should be in 2024, probably Q2 of 2024. We'll start putting that out there where these wearables can attach to our app. And so that way, it doesn't matter which one you own, it'll work with our tech.
Yeah, that sounds amazing to be able to do that.
So let's those are our wearables. I know we keep going back to them, but it's just such a hot market right now. And so there's a ton of them out there. Try them out. See what you guys think. You got to find the one that works best for you. I'm trying the Samsung one right now. I'm having good results on it, but honestly, it's just too big. I just don't like the size of it. If I could find something smaller, I think it would work better for me. So try a few of them, see what works for you. Don't give up on them. They do give you a lot of great data. Transitioning into today, we're actually recording. It's Monday, 9/11. And so for a lot of people, this day brings back really, really awful memories, right? It doesn't matter kind of how old you were, what you were doing. Everybody knows where they were and what was going on 9/11. Everybody has a core memory of that. When they either heard of the towers being hit or watched them on TV, everybody knows exactly where they were. It's like the whole world kind of just stopped and froze in time for everybody right there. And as we're talking about this right now, and you guys are going to be listening to this podcast tomorrow, so you're, on Monday when 9/11 was when it was 9/11, you're going to have all these memories that kind of come back and remember where you were and how you felt. And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. It's going to be a day past, but we definitely want to touch on it and see if we can't bring you guys some hope and just try and unpack that a little bit. So from your point of view, Jess, if you're dealing with somebody who is still struggling with that 9/11 experience, how would you begin to unpack that with them?
Yeah, I the first thing that comes to mind is one of the tools that you and I practiced, I think at the very beginning of our podcast, which is the RAIN technique, RAIN, and that is R, recognize what you're feeling, A, allow yourself to feel it, I, investigate what's going on around you, and then N, nurture or not take personal, right? And so I would walk my clients through that process and help teach them how to do that on their own so they don't need me for it when they, when they move forward in their therapy process. But another good tool is what we're going to talk about today later with the DBT and the wise mind. And we can get into that later. But really, in this season, for a lot of people, it's that A and that rain is just, you got to allow yourself to sit in the emotions and the feelings for a little bit because they're real and they're there. And trying to push them away or ignore them isn't going to help. And also noticing that in those emotions that we are sitting in, they're there to help move us forward and not to just sit in all the time. And so working with a professional therapist or group therapy is going to be really, really good for your growth, being able to move out of sitting in that emotion and towards growth. But being okay with both, being okay with sitting in it for a little bit and acknowledging and realizing, you know what? I've known people who were at ground zero when it happened. And for me specifically, I joined the Army right after it happened. I was a junior in high school. It happened. I saw what it did for our nation and the unity that it brought. And it was kind of like the first thing that made me want to be patriotic and serve my country.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people, was that it really just solidified us as America. It brought us all together, one cause, and the recruiting stations were filled, with people wanting to join and serve. You had guys that had been out for a long time saying, hey, put me back in, coach, like, let's go. And then you had this whole younger generation of kids saying, hey, I want to go support my country and fight for my country. Let's go do some work. And so you saw that. And so even for me, I'd been out of the Marine Corps for just about 4 or 5 months when that happened. And so of course I call up my unit and I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm going to go back to work. And so that's what I did. And so there was all of that, just this surge of, American pride and, hey, we need to protect the homeland, because we hadn't been hit like that ever. And so it was a big shock to our system, is disbelief, and confusion. And it took days to figure out like what actually happened, like what was going on, until we figured out, it was a terrorist attack. And so a lot of that fear of the unknown I saw in those days.
I would also encourage.
Oh, go ahead, Jess.
I would also encourage anybody who is triggered by the day to set up safety barriers and boundaries for yourself. For instance, on Memorial Day weekend, I am off Facebook or any social media days before and days after, because people unintentionally and ignorantly say things that are very triggering and are kind of ignorant in general around the reason for Memorial Day and those kinds of things. So I've learned over the years to just set up some safety boundaries for myself so I can handle Memorial Day a little better and less triggered. And then also we've talked about the anniversary effect as well. And so that's also something to keep in the forefront of your mind, that gearing up, if you have a specific trigger from 9/11, gearing up and like really gearing up your mental health to be able to kind of take you through the wave of what that trigger is going to look like for you, and being proactive instead of reactive.
That is such great advice, Jess. I'm glad you brought that up. That is so important. You've got to prepare for those days that are going to be tough. Don't just ignore it and try and push it away, but actually prepare for it and put safeguards in place. You're absolutely right. Because that anniversary effect, we know that it's there. And so if you can prepare for it, then it's not going to hit you as hard. It's still going to be there, still going to be rough, but you'll be in better control. So that's such great advice, Jess. What I see a lot is a lot of avoidance behavior, which is not good. Right. And I'm sure, I see you smiling over there. You're like, yes, avoidance behavior. I was a master at avoidance behavior for a long time because it's uncomfortable, right? Like when you said, to recognize it, like the minute I recognized it, I was like, I'm out. Like, I want to deal with it. I want to talk about it, like going away. and I would just push it out, that avoidance behavior. I would avoid anything and everything that reminded me remotely that could possibly trigger me. And what happens is you start finding things that your brain associates with that trauma, and so you just eliminate it out of your life. And you watch kind of the walls of your life close in and get smaller and smaller and more narrow and more narrow. And the next thing you know, you're just sitting in your house with a loaded gun waiting for somebody to break in 24/7. You're not even going outside. You're not calling your friends. You're just sitting there paranoid of everything, because any little thing could trigger you. And so you cut off everybody and everything in your life. And it's a very isolating feeling and scary, because now you're alone with just your thoughts that keep these intrusive thoughts that just keep coming in. And so I'm speaking from experience here. Like what I just shared, like that was me, just the walls were closing in. And until I could, just like you said, sit with them and be comfortable in the uncomfortable, for just a few minutes at a time. That kind of exposure therapy is what they called it, where I was being exposed to these triggers a little bit at a time, until I built up a resistance to them. Kind of like lifting weights, right? Like you don't go in there and jump on the weight pile and bench 225, not day one, right? You got to work up. Maybe you're just at 100 pounds, and then you're at 110, and then you're at 150. You're working your way up. Same thing with what Jess is talking about here. You really have to build those mental muscles and that mental resiliency by sitting in the uncomfortable until you can, be stronger through it. So let me ask you another question, Jess, because we talk a lot about peer support here. And so if you have a friend or family member that this day is going to be hard for them, you said that there's a lot of people who are ignorant to it or unintentionally say the wrong things. So how can we be a good help to our friends? What can we do that would be helpful instead of hindering their mental health journey?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways. If you are cognizant of a close friend or family member that this is a hard day, even just reaching out and saying, "Hey, I don't even know what to say or do. I just want you to know I'm here if you need anything." Keeping any kind of opinions to yourself about. I would especially say any kind of what do they call them? Conspiracy theories. Don't talk about them. That's a huge trigger. And just stretch your empathy, your ability to empathize with your friends or family. And if you are the friend or family that is easily triggered, understand that when people say maybe ignorant things that are hurtful, sometimes, most of the time, their intentions are not to do that. And so kind of meeting halfway together, learning how to go through this process together in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's great advice. One of the things that my wife and I do is we say assume best intentions, right? And so I'll say something that will trigger her or upset her. I'm not trying to do that, right? But my delivery was off, and so she'll get upset at me. I'm like, hey, assume best intentions, right? And she's like, oh yeah, that's right. He didn't mean for that to be offensive or hurtful or triggering. I was trying, I just failed, right? So when you can remind yourself, oh, just assume best intentions from that individual who knows you and loves you and just wants to be supportive and failed at it, right? Assume that they had good intentions, because most often they probably did. They just flubbed it, right? Because they're not professionals at it. So could we do this, Jess? Could you give me an example of something that you would say, right? And just so our viewers can hear like an example of what that sounds like. Because a lot of them are probably thinking like, that's great, but what does that sound like? What does that conversation sound like? What's something that you would say to an individual around this day that would show that empathy toward them?
Yeah. So if I'm talking to you, Aaron, and you're triggered around this time of the year, because I had a professor who, how about this? A professor, great guy, was at ground zero. He was a mental health counselor at ground zero. He was living in New York, private practice. And so he was there for crisis recovery, crisis response during the whole thing. And he has quite a bit of PTSD surrounding this day because of this day. And then I would either, if I'm reaching out, verbally communicating, or a text message or something to say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you today. I know this is a really hard time of the year, and I have no words to express my empathy for you. I can't imagine what you went through, and I can't imagine what you continue to go through. Every time this day comes about, if there's anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. From just, if you need me to DoorDash you dinner tonight, or go to the grocery store and buy you a whole month's worth of groceries, whatever you need, just let me know. And a lot of times people say, oh, I'm okay. And so if you're close and you know them really well, I would say be proactive with them and intentional with them, and go ahead and just do it and just say, hey, don't worry about dinner tonight. I know your favorite Italian restaurant with your favorite pizza. I'm having it delivered tonight.
I wonder what that would be like if we did that for our friends when we knew they were struggling, right? Like 9/11 aside, we know that somebody's going through a hard time, whether it's an illness in the family, or maybe they're a divorce that's looming, on the horizon, or something like that. Like, or that something from their past, like Memorial Day, is coming up. What if we just intentionally looked at our friends and knew, because we know them, who could be struggling, and reached out and offered support? I wonder what that would do for our relationships if we could consciously think about that and try and invest in our close friends and family.
Well, I have.
So that's something for all of us to think about.
Yeah, I have a handful of people that reach out to me over Memorial Day weekend and even the 4th of July, because they know how triggering the fireworks leading up to the 4th of July are for me. And just the text, hey, I know this is a hard time for you. Just know I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. If you need anything, let me know. Just knowing that, like, I came into their mind during this season, and they're thinking about me, is, for me, it's amazing when I have those handful of people, and they do it every year.
So think about that, you guys out there listening. Look at your close circle of friends. Now, you can't do this for everybody, right? It would burn you out. But look at your close circle of friends and think about, like, what are times that are difficult for them, and how can you best support them? And it can be something really small, like Jess said. Just put out a little text message, or Uber Eats them some ice cream that that they love, or something like that. Really, really show that empathy and support that they really need, because maybe they're doing okay, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're really struggling in that moment. And that little text message is that small little beacon of hope that you give them. And we know that, according to Johns Hopkins University, hope is the #1 catalyst for survival. So you never know where that person's state of mind may be during that really hard time for them. And just that little bit of hope that you give them to let them know that, hey, I'm thinking about you and I care about you. It's that little bit of hope that you can give them that'll get them to that next moment, and that next moment, and that next day. So we have the power to be able to do that for one another. So thank you for sharing that with us, Jess, for sharing a little bit about your journey and your story. I know that impacted me, and I've been friends with you for a long time. And so I know all of these things, but to hear it again from you, and not just in a conversation between you and me, but a conversation we're having with the world, that you're vulnerable and that you share that was really touching to me, to watch you do that, to share that little bit of yourself, because it's going to help the, hundreds of thousands of people that are going to hear this podcast.
Awesome.
All right, let's move along to this DBT, right?
Yeah. So kind of like CBT is cognitive behavior therapy. DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. Okay. And so,
so tell me that dialectical. What is that word? What is that?
I don't specialize in it, so I don't know 100%. It is one of the theories that we learn, one of the 100 theories that we learn in, graduate school, of different theories that you can adopt and learn more about for for your practice, right? And so there's things all the way from Sigmund Freud's psychotherapy to, I mean, people that like do hypnosis for therapy. Like there's so many things. And so there's a couple things that what I like about DBT, it's very similar to CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, because it's a hands-on and it's practical tools to use, and you can measure it when you use it. And so the one that we'll talk about today specifically is what they call wise mind. And I'll send Casey kind of the handout to show you visually what it looks like. But what the wise mind is, if you can imagine two circles, these are two circles, and see they're connected here in this big part. The big part of this circle here is your logical mind. The big part of this circle here is your emotional mind. And right in that middle where they overlap is called the wise mind. That's where we want to strive to be. So again, like we talk about a lot, is this knowing is half the battle. And so when I sit with clients and we start dissecting, like, just to give you like a cliche client is maybe a 45-year-old man who was raised by really, really strict parents. You don't have feelings. You're a guy. Suck it up. Don't cry. That kind of generation that was raised with that. They really operate in the logical mind and hardly ever reach that emotional mind. And then that creates problems in their marriage because they're emotionally unavailable. And then I also see
I feel like you're talking about me, Jess.
Shut up. Maybe at one point of your life, I bet.
As you were saying that, I'm like, I'm checking every one of those boxes, man. I mean, not anymore, but because I, been doing this work. But I was like, man, that's really, that's me. That was me for sure.
45-year-old men. It's the number one reason I see men is my wife says I am emotionally unavailable and I need to see a therapist.
I can see that. That's the Gen X. That's the Generation X. That's my generation. That's us for sure. Yep.
So then you get other people who were raised completely different, had completely different experiences, and they operate only in their emotional mind. And so they allow their emotions to lead them, when it's important to think logically and it's important to have emotions and experience them. It's not healthy to let either one completely lead you all the time. And so learning that wise mind, how to get in the middle to pick from both in a healthy way, is what really helps relationships, leaders, bosses, people in the workplace, you name it. Learning that sweet spot in the middle really helps any kind of relationship flourish. And so what I do is I just kind of dissect with some of my clients. My 45-year-old male client whose wife sent him to counseling because he's emotionally, uninvolved, right? I would start dissecting, okay, what kind of emotions do you feel? And a lot of times I say, I don't feel anything, but your wife says that you're very angry all the time. That's an emotion. So you are passionate about something. Where's that passion coming from? And why is it surfacing as anger? Because anger is just the service emotion, kind of hiding a different emotion that they have neglected to nourish over 45 years.
I feel like we've already started the therapy interaction session.
Yeah. This will be a fun one for you.
No, none of these are fun.
This will be a fun one for Holly to watch.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So you want to get into it? You want to move right into it? All right.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Yeah. So Aaron, this is our third session. And we're building this therapeutic relationship. It's going well. Let's talk about some areas that you feel the most passion in your life.
Probably fishing.
Fishing?
Yeah.
Okay. What about fishing do you like?
I like that there's typically nobody else around. There's just me out there, me and the fish, fighting it out, mano a mano.
Yeah. And what about being alone is good for you emotionally?
Because nobody is bothering me, needing me to do something. At work, people are always demanding they need this and this and this. I have family, extended family that's always needing my help on the weekends. My wife always has a ton of things she wants me to do. The kids always need something for sports or, everybody needs something from me. So when I'm out there fishing, nobody can reach me and I just have peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that we've talked about in the past is that your wife thinks that you go fishing too much.
I say I don't fish enough. I have a lot of stress in my life. A lot of it's from her.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you put yourself in her shoes, when she sees you wanting to kind of escape from the family by fishing, what do you think that communicates to her?
I don't know. I never really asked her, I guess. Maybe they don't want to be part of the family.
You said one word that was really interesting to me. You said burden. You don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
Because everybody's always bothering me.
Yeah. What about them needing you for things is bothersome?
Because I feel like I don't have any time for myself. That every minute of my day is filled with, filling somebody else's needs.
Yeah.
Just feel overwhelmed a lot, I guess.
Feel overwhelmed a lot. Yeah. Let me ask, what does your wife do for your family and for you?
She takes care of the house and the kids, and she does all that.
Yeah, what does all that entail?
Oh, the cooking and the cleaning and, taking care of getting the kids off to school and, making sure all that stuff is taken care of, the managing of the house.
Yeah. And does she take a lot of time for herself?
I don't know. She's home all day.
Yeah. I wonder what that would look like for her if you asked her.
Hadn't really considered it.
What would it feel for you if she asked you, hey, honey, do you want to take a couple days to go fishing to take care of yourself?
That would be awesome because usually she's finding out reasons why I shouldn't go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? And this is a safe place for us, for you to be able to be honest and tell me emotionally how you feel about your family needing you, that it feels at times like it's a bother to you. What does that feel like for you to think my family bothers me?
Yeah, bothers might not be the right word. I feel overwhelmed, by it. That's what I feel most often. Like I'm kind of drowning in all the work that I do, and then coming home and having take care of the yard work, and then having all these little projects that need to be done, and the kids need help with homework or whatever. I just feel overwhelmed, like I'm drowning. So I want to just get away from it.
Yeah,
escape it.
And would you say it's fair? It's a fair assessment that you emotionally detach from your family?
Yeah, I kind of have to. I feel like I just get into work mode. Like, what's coming next? Let's fix this problem and move on to the next one.
And what would it look like if you expressed those feelings to your family?
Oh, I don't know. They might feel bad about it. So I'm just quiet and don't say anything and then go fishing.
Yeah. And so the message that is being portrayed from my unbiased opinion is that you guys bother me. I need time away, and I'm going to shut down because I can't handle my emotions with you guys. And so, like you said, just sitting here talking about it and rephrasing some things and repeating some of the words that you use, like my family is a bother to me. Like that's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not really a fair assessment. I don't believe your family bothers you all the time. Is that fair?
No, I just when you ask the question, that's just the first emotion that kind of popped up, is that frustration and that that frustration and that feeling overwhelmed, like there's too much to do and not enough time.
Yeah. Would you say that you have some maybe expectations that you have of them that you haven't clearly communicated?
Yeah, I guess I just don't know where to start with that.
Yeah. And then this is right. We could do a whole session just unpacking this, but this is where I would go with a client with some ideas that they collaboratively come up with me about what is going to work for them to start learning how to open up. And it could be a family meeting. It could be the first step is, hey guys, I'm going to counseling and I'm learning these things about myself. And I thank you for your grace and your patience through this process. And I want your feedback as I'm doing this to see if it's working.
You know, it's funny. I had to, when we did this exercise, I had to really go deep into my memory bank, back to like my first marriage, and be like, how was I back then? How did I feel back then? What was I doing? You know? So it was really strange to kind of dig back into that memory bank of who I was before. Because all these things that you're saying, I'm like, okay, I'm doing all these things, and I'm definitely better person now than I was back then. But to try and dig back into that memory bank was a little odd. It's kind of like, I guess it'd be like putting on your old military uniform, right? Like I used to fit in this thing, but I've outgrown it now, right? Like I who I was before is that a bad joke? Yes, for all veterans out there, it's the veteran fat joke. But you can't fit back into that uniform anymore, right? You've grown, and same thing. We can't. I can't. Trying to fit back into those old emotions and old mindset was really hard because I've grown. I'm a different person now. But it was just kind of a weird experience for me to do that role play with you and have to like go back into like who I used to be. And it was really uncomfortable because I was like, man, I was a jerk, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing for you to be able to recognize it, allow yourself to feel it. You're investigating, right? That you're not that person anymore. And so now you can nurture and not take personal that you used to be that guy, and nurture yourself in the growth that you've worked so hard for intentionally.
I am getting a real counseling session right now from Jessica Bergens. I'm getting a real one, not a pretend one. That right there was like real. That was pretty cool. And you guys got to witness it. Thank you, Jessica. That was awesome. You're welcome. Is that where you were going with this whole thing, or you just on the fly saw it happening and just capitalized on the moment?
Yeah, capitalization.
That was fantastic. Wow. Amazing. Well, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about wearables. We've talked about 9/11 and the anniversary effect and how we can be good support for our friends and our family. We've also talked about this DBT therapy, hoping that we could educate you guys about it a little bit, so that way you, when you start seeking out counseling, you aren't as afraid of this type of therapy because you've seen a little bit here with us. And so, as always, we want to help you take control of your mental health journey. And just want to remind you guys right now that the Q Actual technology is absolutely free. You guys can download the free version right now, build your squad. And, these times that are triggering, that are hard, we have that emergency button there. You push that button, it sends the alert to your squad, and now they can respond in real time. helping you to regain your cognitive thought process and offering support. And Jessica was fantastic. She showed us exactly what that support looks like. So now you're a little bit more prepared to assist, your friends and family. And remember, when they push that button, when we respond to them, it gives them that little bit of hope that they need, which is the number one catalyst for survival. So we always hope to educate you, empower you, and encourage you on your mental health journey. So I'm Sergeant Q, and for Doc Jess, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And we'll see you next time on the Mental Health Janitors, where we'll help you clean up the mess in your head.